With 109 school shootings so far this year, we've been examining approaches to making our kids safer when they head off to school. Tonight's Eye in America looks at the business of making classrooms more secure. CBS's Mark Strassman reports on what's now a $3 billion business in the U.S., from weapons detection to safe rooms to bulletproof backpacks.
So welcome to the Zero Eyes Operations Center.
Rob Huberty's Operations Center reads military for good reason. Huberty's company, Zero Eyes, fights an American scourge, school shooters. Its AI technology scans security cameras for guns in hundreds of school districts, beaming images here rapid fire for inspection.
She's seeing things that our AI said, perhaps this is a gun, you need to look at this.
If somebody walks in with an AR-15, what happens?
So she's going to click this button, dispatch, and in just a handful of seconds, everyone's going to get notified.
Huberty is an ex-Navy SEAL. This image got to him. The Parkland school shooter preparing, his gun visible on a security camera. But no one was watching. He then killed 17 people in 2018.
If we could catch somebody in that staging area,
there's a window of opportunity.
Absolutely. So we have cameras all over.
Outside Philadelphia, this is Zero Eye's giant green screen room. Huberty showed us how his company films firearms to train its AI.
Different positions, different configurations.
But this technology can't spot hidden weapons, like a gun tucked in a backpack. And it's pricey, costing schools tens of thousands of dollars annually.
So it just literally rolls back.
Kevin Thomas's approach in Alabama, a collapsible, expandable safe room inside a classroom. Floor to ceiling, 8 feet by 8 feet, roomy enough for 30 students, and bullet resistant.
And the kids have more of an opportunity to go home.
That was the only intent when I started this.
Razor is easy to deploy.
Thomas, a commercial contractor, started building these after a gunman got into an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas in 2022. 21 people were shot and killed.
We tell them to shelter in place, but we don't have a shelter.
You're saying they should have more options than hiding in the corner exposed.
Are you going to ask your 6-year-old to engage? I'm not.
Just in the last 4 years, school shootings have killed more than 200 people and injured more than 600. It's why schools have gone on a security spending spree, along with fearful parents. They're buying school accessories like this 3-ring binder cover. It doubles as body armor. And this unicorn backpack, marketed as adorable and bulletproof. $3 billion a year is spent on school security. Is this money well spent?
Right now, there's not very good research to suggest that it is.
Rutgers University professor Daniel Semenza is a critic of this approach.
Do people just feel they are reasserting a sense of control?
Yeah, it's a fear response and it's an empowerment.
Ballistic doors got our lightweight ballistics.
The safe room has a hefty price tag, $45,000.
If you could donate one to every classroom, you would.
Absolutely.
And if you could put yourself out of business?
Absolutely, tomorrow, today, right now.
Not likely, as America's schools edge closer to fortresses. For Eye on America, Mark Strassman in Philadelphia.
We've been reporting this week on the U.S. Surgeon General declaring gun violence a public health crisis. Firearm deaths among children have gone up nearly 90% in the last decade, and the American Academy of Pediatrics urges doctors to discuss firearm safety with their patients, because for many it's remained a taboo topic. Well, in tonight's Eye in America, CBS's Nikki Batiste reports on doctors working to change the conversation around safe gun storage.
This gun range may feel a world away from a doctor's office, but these are medical professionals training to save lives by learning about guns.
I felt like I had a real deficit in talking about firearms with patients.
We sat in on the class Dr. James Bigham teaches at Max Creek Gun Range in Wisconsin.
First thing I want to start off with is the bullet.
With shop and gun owner Steve DeRazio.
That's part of being the responsible gun owner, is knowing right from wrong.
A primary care doctor and professor at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, Dr. Bigham asks his patients about how they store their weapons in routine visits.
People may feel it's too personal, but as a physician, I absolutely think I have the space to say we got to be doing everything we can to protect our children, our communities.
In 2018, the NRA tweeted regarding this topic that doctors should stay in their lane. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I think this is our lane. As a primary care doctor, if I'm willing to counsel you on alcohol consumption, tobacco use, how you're driving your car, I got to be talking about firearms as well.
Is this a Second Amendment issue?
I don't think so. I mean, we have the right to bear arms. I sell guns. That's the last thing I want to do is take away my guns. It's not about taking away, it's about safety, and that's it.
Nearly 500 people a year die from accidental shootings. Gun suicides are at an all-time high for adults, and suicide rates for children have risen dramatically. Access to unlocked firearms in homes makes suicide nearly 4 times more likely. There are about 30 million children across the country living in homes with guns.
Studies show a child as young as 3 has the strength to pull this trigger.
Pediatricians at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia say asking parents about safe gun storage is as important as asking about bike helmets and pool safety.
Are there any guns at home?
Dad is in the Army, so there is one, but we actually got a lock here for it.
To share your experiences.
Dr. Dorothy Novick is also teaching these soon-to-be doctors how to broach the triggering topic.
All of the injury prevention, safety counseling that we offer, we now wrap firearms right into that conversation to really make it normal.
The hospital provides these gun locks to families, one step in making homes safer.
This is really a conversation about safety. This is not a question about politics or ideology. And in fact, people from all across the ideological spectrum all agree that firearm safety is really a fundamental tenet of responsible firearm ownership.
Critical care, starting with a life-saving conversation. For Eye on America, Nikki Batiste, Philadelphia.
1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are victims of domestic violence. That, according to a CDC survey. Tonight, there is a new law in Tennessee to protect these victims. Born from an unspeakable tragedy, it's the first in the country to mandate GPS monitoring of the most violent domestic violence offenders. Here's CBS's Meg Oliver with tonight's Eye on America.
Wilson County 911, where is your emergency?
There's a man trying to shoot a woman with a shotgun.
On April 12, 2021, outside Nashville, Debbie Sisko and her daughter Marie Varsos were shot and killed by Marie's estranged husband, who later took his own life.
3 people are dead after a murder-suicide in Lebanon.
Sean Varsos broke into his mother-in-law's house where Marie was staying. He had guns, zip ties, and battery acid, ready to hunt them down. Varsos was out on bail after strangling his wife and threatening her with a gun the month before.
Yeah, he went running that way, had a shotgun.
I remember, screaming, it was very emotional.
Alex Yawn is Marie's brother and Debbie's son.
2 people that I love dearly were just very quickly ripped out of my life.
Judges can require GPS as a condition of bail, but often don't.
Varsos was considered enough of a threat that the judge had the ability to require a GPS tracking device put on him, but he didn't. Why not?
That's a question, for the judge. It's one that infuriates me. My sister, my mother.
Yawn turned his pain and anger into a successful push for mandated GPS tracking of aggravated assault offenders in domestic violence cases. Tennessee's new law is called the Debbie and Marie Domestic Violence Protection Act.
Do you believe if Varsos had been wearing a GPS tracking device that your mother and sister would still be alive today?
Absolutely.
Domestic violence is everywhere.
Jennifer Wendell is with the Battered Women's Justice Project.
How likely is it for, a high-risk suspect to repeat their actions?
When there's firearms at play, when there's strangulation, when there's elevated stalking, they're more likely to do it again.
Here's how it works. Victims are notified through a phone app or an electronic device when an offender violates an order of protection. That can mean moving within a certain radius of the victim or breaching an exclusion zone like their house. When that happens, victims can receive multiple alerts like texts, emails, and a monitoring service calls law enforcement.
Every second matters.
Ray Gandalf is helping to lead the charge on using GPS technology as a safety tool.
They can look for help. They can find cover. They can position themselves in a safe place, lock themselves in a place where they have the opportunity to call 911 and to get help dispatched to them immediately.
Is that the difference between life and death?
Certainly.
Alex has made sure the names of Debbie Sisko and Marie Varsos live on.
I'm hopeful that other states would be able to look at this and maybe adopt it moving forward.
All it takes is the will of lawmakers to use the technology of today to prevent the tragedies of tomorrow. For Eye on America, I'm Meg Oliver in Nashville.
We spent the last 2 days confronting a horrifying part of life in America these days, school shootings. Summer recess brought a break from that violence, but as we've all been reminded, that break is over because school shootings seem to be something we are unwilling or unable to change. Here's CBS's Jim Axelrod with tonight's Eye on America.
So now we've got a new name atop the hideous list.
He was a very sweet kid. He did not deserve this. Neither did the coach or everyone else.
Winder, Georgia joins Columbine, Newtown, Uvalde, and hundreds of others with traumatized children.
You can hear gunshots just ringing out through the school, and you're just wondering which one of those is going to be somebody that you're best friends with or somebody that you love.
And parents who rushed to campus not knowing if they would hug their kids or bury them.
I just dropped everything and sprinted to the car. He got a bullet hole from one side of his backpack to the other side.
Winder, Georgia.
The gunshots were so close to me, my ears started ringing real bad.
A new name that's shorthand for senseless tragedy. Because it's been such a steady drumbeat in the news cycle for so many years, it might be easy to lose sight of the dimensions of the school shooting epidemic. Since Columbine, a quarter century ago, there have been 388 deadly school shootings in the United States, killing at least 526 people. Let that sink in.
But as a nation, we cannot continue to accept the carnage of gun violence.
We've endured too many of these tragedies in the past few years.
Pick your president.
Our nation is shocked and saddened by the news of the shootings at Virginia Tech today.
Even your decade, it's been a problem with no solution.
Perhaps now America would wake up to the dimensions of this challenge, and we could prevent anything like this from happening again.
Well, apparently we can't. Angel Garza told us that in the days after he lost his 10-year-old, Amory Joe, in Uvalde.
Nothing's gonna change. I mean, this always happens in a small town. Nobody expects anything bad to happen, and then it happens, and everybody wants to make changes to prevent it from happening, and then it dies down a little bit, and then it happens again, and then it's a cycle.
Whoever first defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result wasn't talking about school shootings. But think about it. Insanity. What better word is there to describe where we are? For Eye on America, I'm Jim Axelrod in New York.
Tonight, we want to dig deeper into a story we first reported on in June. That's when a police officer in upstate New York shot and killed a teenager who was carrying a replica gun. An estimated 12 million BB guns were sold in the U.S. last year, a number that is projected to nearly double in the next few years. And of course, many of them look like real guns. In tonight's Eye on America, Anna Warner shows us how that's making the job of police officers more challenging.
In late June in Utica, New York, police shot and killed a 13-year-old boy who had run from them, then wound up in a struggle with an officer on the ground. The teen was holding what police thought was a handgun.
It's a 22.
It was only later at the station, police say, that they discovered the gun wasn't a real firearm, but a pellet gun. Utica Police Chief Mark Williams told us he can't talk about the officer's actions because they're under investigation. But he did want to talk about what the gun industry refers to as replica guns.
They look like the exact same weapon, a firearm, as a Glock.
Those replica guns fire small metal pellets or BBs. In decades past, many replicas were plastic and advertised as toys. But now many replica and even toy guns can be indistinguishable from regular firearms.
It's a challenge because they look so real.
Jim Baltazar teaches on police use of force for the ATF.
It looks so real that officers are going to have to react as if it is a real gun.
This is the kind of pellet gun police say the teen in Utica was carrying, a look-alike for a 9mm Glock handgun, made by company Umarex under a license from Glock. If it were a toy gun, federal regulations would require a bright orange tip, but pellet guns are exempt. We wanted to know how that pellet gun and the real firearm compare when held by a person. So we set up a camera to get the head-on view with no one standing behind it for safety, along with a side view. Here's the first gun, now the second. Baltazar says even he wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
I think it would be superhuman to be able to tell the difference in the midst of an interaction with a suspect, certainly on the street.
It just looks too real.
It looks too real. If you think you can tell the difference, would you bet your life on it?
The result of many interactions between police and people holding replica guns has been death. In the past decade, more than 300 people nationwide have been killed. And Lindsay Nichols with the Giffords Law Center blames the gun industry.
They are the ones profiting off this. They are the ones who they know that these guns can be mistaken for real guns.
In fact, a warning in fine print tells users, do not brandish or display it in public. Police and others may think it is a firearm. Laws in 23 states and the District of Columbia restrict possession or sales of those guns. Yet those replicas seem easy to get.
Wow.
We found numerous listings on Facebook Marketplace that appeared to be selling pellet guns, unidentified toy guns, or mystery guns, often in violation of Facebook owner Meta's policy. Facebook removed those listings after we asked about them, but claimed to us in a statement that its systems automatically remove over 98% of problem listings.
I mean, if they weren't manufactured in the first place, they wouldn't end up on Facebook.
Gun manufacturers, including Glock and pellet gun maker Umarex, did not respond to our multiple requests for comment. But back in Utica, Chief of Police Mark Williams says,
I hold them responsible. What they're basically doing is you're endangering lives.
In the past 10 years, at least 19 children who had replica guns were shot and killed in interactions with police. For Eye on America, I'm Anna Werner.
To mark Mental Illness Awareness Week, tonight we're looking at a new approach to lower the rate of suicide in this country. In 2022, nearly 50,000 people died by suicide nationwide. That's a record. In tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Nicole Skanga shows us how one veteran's offer to hold on to his friend's guns is now powering a movement.
Not many mental health movements begin inside a gun store.
This safe is life-saving.
Yes, ma'am, without a doubt.
The story of why the rustic renegade came to care for hundreds of other people's firearms begins with this Iraqi war vet's return home.
You failed at being a civilian.
In my mind, I did. And I couldn't find my purpose if I wasn't a soldier, because my identity was wrapped up in what I did.
Caleb Morse left behind 13 years of service for civilian life and opened up a gun shop in his native Louisiana. That's when purpose arrived on his doorstep in the form of an old Army pal.
One day he just shows up and he's like, hey, I don't want my guns anymore. Life really sucks right now. Is there anything you can do to help me? And I'm like, well, I can hold on to your firearms if it's that bad. I'll give them back to you whenever you say you're good.
Word got out.
More and more vets showed up saying, hey, look, I'm in a bad spot.
Major depressive disorder with psychotic features, anxious distress, panic disorder, PTSD.
These men agreed to speak with us anonymously about their struggles with suicidal thoughts.
It got really bad really fast.
At what point did you start thinking about, I've got firearms?
When the thought crossed my mind, I didn't want to be here anymore.
They found a lifeline in Morse.
The next morning, I called Caleb and said, I need you to come get my guns. And he showed up.
I've lost more friends to suicide than I did in combat.
Suicide by firearm is a uniquely fatal epidemic, with roughly 90% of attempts lethal.
From 2002 to 2021, nearly 87,000 veterans died by gun suicide. That's 16 times the number of service members killed in action over the same period.
I've worked at the VA for 17 years.
So when the VA piloted the Armory Project, a suicide prevention program built around Louisiana gun shops, research investigator Gala True immediately phoned Caleb Morse.
The number one thing that comes up all across the country for firearm retailers is this concern about civil liability.
The two set out to pioneer a bill legally shielding gun store owners who agree to hold on to firearms.
A Good Samaritan law, where if you're really trying to help someone and you do everything, within the bounds of the law, you shouldn't lose your business.
Senator Cathy, yes.
The bipartisan measure passed unanimously in Louisiana in 2022. There's now a similar law in Montana.
Some of these are collectible firearms.
To date, Caleb Morse has stored and restored over 400 firearms for roughly 50 gun owners.
There's no way I would be here without Caleb.
If firearm storage was a reality in all 50 states, what would this country look like?
We're already the greatest nation. Man, we could be so much better.
A collection unlike any other in America, powered by one man's promise to do right by others. For Eye on America, Nicole Skenga, Lafayette, Louisiana.
There have been at least 109 school shootings in the U.S. this year, killing 44 people at K-12 schools. Among the most contentious ideas for protecting America's kids, arming teachers and staff. For tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Nikki Batiste visited Ohio to examine both sides of the debate.
It's a moment that still haunts these hallways.
I could smell the burnt gunpowder. Yeah, I knew it was real then.
The day in 2017 when West Liberty Salem School joined the list of schools that have experienced a shooting.
So these were bullets hit?
The only visible scars left are holes in this bathroom wall from gunshots, but the trauma still lingers.
You had kids jumping out of windows thinking they might die.
Later on, they got the good news that nobody died, but their brain had already experienced that traumatic experience.
When you came, what did you see?
In that bathroom, principals Andy McGill and Greg Johnson rushed to help a student who had been shot twice. Just feet away was the shooter, a student they knew well.
I said his name, and he just said, "I'm sorry, Coach." And I asked him, "I need you to put the gun down," and he did.
Following the shooting, the pair led the drive to implement new security measures, including bulletproofing glass, better window exits, and a school resource officer. But they chose not to arm any staff or teachers.
When you were in that bathroom talking to the shooter, was there any moment you wished you had a gun?
No.
About 50 miles south, just outside Dayton, the Mad River Local School District has given guns to about 20 of its teachers whose identities are kept confidential. We spoke with one of those teachers, keeping her in shadow as part of the district's safety measures.
If there's a school shooter, it could be a student that you know.
Oh, absolutely. At that point in time, that student's not my student. They are now a murderer, and I am stopping a threat, and that's to save other lives.
Across the U.S., 15 states allow school personnel to carry guns on campus. In the last year, the number of school districts in Ohio with armed staff quadrupled, with 14% of the state's districts now participating. Chad Wyan is the superintendent at Mad River and the only armed member of the staff whose identity is public.
So where is your firearm?
So mine's actually housed right here in my cabinet. So I punch in a code.
It was his idea to have guns near teachers in a safe rather than on them, a strategy to prevent unauthorized access.
So typically there's a live round in the chamber. Yeah, we have to be prepared.
He says guns in the classroom serve as a measure of assistance for their single resource officer across 8 schools in the district.
there's no way our police can get there in time to stop it. And that's why we chose to go down that path.
Luckily, he says, they've never had a student bring a gun to their campuses, and most parents here are grateful for this layer of protection.
Some people oppose the idea of armed staff having a gun in a classroom. What would you say to them?
I understand why they have that belief, and I understand their concerns with guns. I had similar concerns before I was comfortable with guns. It's just a tool to protect yourself or to protect other people.
Are you willing to die for your job?
I'm willing to die for a student to protect them.
A test no teacher ever wants to take. For Eye on America, Nikki Batiste, Dayton, Ohio.